this morning, and then I'm going to kind of set you up with something real quick, but I want you to find Ephesians 4, Ephesians chapter 4, and then Matthew 22 are the two passages that we're going to look at. But before we dig into that, I want to remind you of a couple things. Christmas is around the corner. Okay, fellas, listen, y'all know I love y'all, right?
Hey, I'm squared away.
You're good? Okay, so just want to tell you, you got a couple weeks, fellas. Let's not wait till next week. All right, and if she says to you, "Oh, don't get me nothing," don't believe it. All right, oh, we ain't gonna buy nothing. No, listen. That does not mean you don't. When she says to you, "Don't buy me nothing," that means you better buy me something. So just gotta, I just feel like that's just a courtesy that I have for you. Just want to just help you with the marriage enrichment, making sure you're not in counseling in the new year. So make sure you get something from Mama. Amen. Amen, ladies. Amen. All right, don't give me nothing that cost over $1,000. Just I'll keep it under that. All right, so let me just set you up real quick. I want to remind you two things we're doing this Christmas. And the reason why I say two, you said I thought it was just one. There's a family in Laos that we are collecting money for our Christmas offering. That's cash that we're collecting, and we're going to send it over to a missionary that's over there on the ground. And the whole purpose of this is to help this young family with 6 girls to be able to buy reeds to open up. I guess they just sell them on the street corner, but to sell brooms. And it sounds crazy to us as Americans, but it's huge over there. And so everybody in Asia uses these reed brooms, and they use them for everything. So we have figured, and we worked out the numbers, and our goal is to bring in about $3,000 to be able to do this. So we need we haven't met our goal yet, so every little bit helps and counts in that. We have that. Now, some other people have said, okay, well, I've given some money to this, but I want to do something else. As of last night, it all came in, but this week we found a family that is in desperate need of a Christmas. And so our ministry team, a.k.a. Robbie right now, Redder, went out and did his due diligence and has a list of what we feel like these kids need. And so we have a list. We're not asking you to buy everything. We're just asking maybe to buy one thing. And so we have a sign-up sheet. We'll have it ready at the end of the service. Sign up, pick something, purchase it for them, and then you're going to get it back to Robbie. Yes. Do they need to wrap it up and label it what it is, correct?
Wrap it with the kid's age and
with the age, and don't tell the kid, obviously, what it is on the outside. I mean, that's kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? Okay, all right, quick story real quick. So my mom one year was wrapping presents, right? And she used this Santa Claus wrapping paper, but she didn't realize that, because as kids, you could see through the wrapping paper and you knew exactly what it was. So that year I got some walkie-talkies. It was pretty cool. All right, because it was right in Santa's beard. It was pretty amazing. So anyway, all right. So we don't want to do that. So just see Robbie at the end. We'll have Robbie in the back. He's got a list. This is a family that's really close to our church. So we know this family. We know the need. They've had they've had a bad couple years. And so we want to be a blessing to them, okay? All right, so if you have your Bibles, Ephesians 4. Now, here's the text. I want to give it to you. Ephesians 4, verse number 17. Let me read this to you. And basically he said, Jason, is this a Christmas message? And I really prayed and asked the Lord if he wanted me to give you a Christmas message. You get it next week, okay? This week, we're going to kind of close out this whole Psalm 100 because a lot of people were talking to me about the text that we read last week, and I really want to kind of just drive it home today. So here it is, Ephesians 4, verse 17. You might know it, you might not. Here's what the Bible says. With the Lord's authority, I say this. This is Paul. And remember, Paul is talking to the church. He says, live no longer as the Gentiles do, for they are hopelessly confused. Their minds are full of darkness. They wander far from the life God gives because they have closed their minds and hardened their hearts. Two things take place: closed minds and hardened hearts against him. Verse 19 says, they have no sense of shame. They live for lustful pleasures and eagerly practice every kind of impurity. Verse 20 is my favorite verse. You want to know why? Because the very first word is a big old what? Y'all said it, not me. It says, but that isn't what you learned about Christ. Since you have heard about Jesus and you have learned the truth that comes from him, and verse 22 is very big, throw off your old sinful nature and your former way of life, which is corrupted by lust and deception. Verse 23, instead, let the Spirit renew your thoughts and attitudes and put on your new nature created to be like God, truly righteous and holy. So we talked about last week about the story, the parable that Jesus gave, and he said when one demon left a person, the person would clean up the house, get everything in order, and then when that demon came back and saw that the house was in order, he would go back and get what? 7 more or 6 more, just as powerful as him, and come back and just take over. We talked about how in your life, it's not good enough just to live a good little life for Jesus. It's got to be something more. So what is that something more? What is it that God's requiring us to do? Well, Paul talks about it, and he says you cannot live the old way. You have to live the new way. You can't live like the world. And here's the problem that we have as Christians, okay? We go to church. God radically changes our hearts. We radically change our lifestyle. And then we go back and hang out with our friends who aren't radically changed. And they look at us and say, you're weird. Right? And so here's the problem we have. So we're constantly in our Christian faith. We're constantly trying our best to not look weird in front of the world. We're constantly trying to be accepted by everybody, even though Christ changed our life. This is the problem that we have in our society today. This is what you're dealing with. The church has Christ as its following, and the problem is that the world's going in another direction, and we're trying to somehow merge that gap, and there is no merging of that gap. That's the problem. That's the problem. That's the problem that I have. That's the problem that you have. That's the problem that our society has. That's why there just seems to be a disconnect from the church and reality of the world. Really? Well, that reality of the world is not my reality. There's always going to be a disconnect. You're always going to be the weird person at the party. I'm just telling you right now. Okay? You're just always going to feel like you're not, man, why can I not connect with these people? Because you don't belong to them anymore. Here's what it's like. It's like, okay, let's say you get arrested and you go to prison. And the first thing they do when you go to prison, not that I've ever been, just clarifying that, but from the movies that I've seen and the stories that I've heard, when you go walk into prison, what do? They strip you down to your clothes, right? And they put what? Prison garb on you, right? You get a jumpsuit, right? And then you live your time in that jail in an orange jumpsuit. And then when you get released from prison, you go to a room and they say, here's the bag that you came in with. Put your clothes back on. You take off the jumpsuit. You put on your clothes that you had on. You walk out. Here's the problem. You ready? Some people get saved and fall in love with Jesus, but they don't take off the jumpsuit. Does that make sense what I'm saying? And that's why it doesn't work. That's why there's a disconnect. Because God didn't save you and had to have you wear the jumpsuit. He saved you, so he puts new clothes on you. He changes you. He changes your heart. He changes your mind. He changes your attitude. He changes your future. He changes everything. The problem is we want to put on the jumpsuit and be like everybody else. Don't be like everybody else because everybody else is in prison. You are free. You're free. Okay, so let me give you the cycle of a corrupt life because this is a thing that we all fall, the trap that we fall into. Let me read the text again. With the Lord's authority, I say to this, live no longer as the Gentiles do, for they are hopelessly confused. Do you remember before you came to Christ, there was a time where you didn't, man, I don't understand. You would read the Bible and you would say things, I just don't understand what this says. I don't understand what this means. And the more you understand Christ, the more you understand the Lord, the more you like, okay, it makes more sense to me now. It makes, you know what I mean? It's changed me. So here's the cycle. You ready? Number one, the root system of all corruption is a hardened heart. Now let me tell you what a hardened heart is. The word that he uses is to speak of a hardened heart is actually a medical term in the Greek. What he's saying is it's like when you break a bone, and then the bone heals, and that the part of that bone, when it merges back together, it actually becomes harder than the bone itself. Did you know that? I didn't know that either. I read it, okay? I'm not a doctor, but I played one on TV one time. Okay, but so it becomes hard. So when he's talking about, so what happens to us is when your heart breaks, and people hurt you, and all this stuff happens, what happens to you is there's a chance for you to allow that heart, when it comes back together and all the pieces are put back in it, it becomes hard or hardened. This is why the Lord tells us, do not let your heart become hardened. It needs to continue to be soft and gentle, right? Does that make sense to what I'm saying? So people are going to hurt you. Just know that. But when you put your pieces back together, don't allow them to become hardened. Because when you allow your heart to become hardened and bitterness to sit in your heart, you're never going to heal properly. That's right. You're going to walk around with the pain and the scars. So we can't allow our hearts to become hardened. The second thing is this, is when your mind is closed, two things happen to every person. Now, when I say with a closed mind, I'm not talking about, let's have an open mind and look at everything objectively. I'm talking about a closed mind to Christ. Okay? Just understand what I'm saying. So when your mind is closed, two things will happen to every person. You lose all sense of reality, and your mind darkens your understanding of everything that is real. So when you're a person that allows your heart to harden, then what the very first thing it affects is your sense of what's really going on. That you really don't allow God to work the way that he needs to work because your heart can't receive the things of the Lord, and so your mind's not going to be able to understand the things of the Lord. So when your heart becomes hardened, your mind closes to anything God has for you. Make sense what I'm saying? Amen. So you have to allow your heart to not be hard and your mind not to be closed. But when those two things happen, here's number 3 I have. When your heart and mind are partners in crime, everything is permitted and only pleasure is sought. That means when your mind and your heart it's all about me, then all you care about is what you can take from somebody else. Well, I don't care about you anymore. If I show you anything, you're going to hurt me. So I'm going to take from you before you take from me. Now think about this. It happens in relationships and marriage. Happens with children, happens with coworkers, happens with bosses and employees, with neighbors. Because when somebody hurts you and somebody goes after you, your very first reaction, like my very first reaction, is to what? Build walls. Why do we build walls? So you can't hurt me anymore. You ever been there? Okay, I'm going to see if I can bring it home to you. Ready? You ever been kicked out of church before? Anybody here? Am I the only one? You ever been kicked out of church or kicked out of a family? Anybody ever been kicked out of a family before? Right? Listen, when my mom got divorced, her first divorce, sorry, Mom, didn't mean to air out your dirty laundry here. She watches every week. But I had these grandparents, right? And so I wasn't even born actually then, but in her first divorce, he left. I mean, she had no option. I mean, she got married at, I think, 19, and then he just, after, I think, a year, he was gone. But his parents came to my mother and said, listen to what they said. They said, he may have divorced you, but we didn't. And they stayed in my life till the day they died. They were at my wedding. They were at the birth of my children. They were everywhere. So you can choose to be in a family if you want to. Amen? Amen. It can be your choice. So when your heart is darkened and your heart is hardened and your mind is darkened, you lose a sense of what really is going on. And so your reality is basically your interpretation, and what your interpretation is how you were hurt, and you put walls up so you can't hurt me anymore. But when you put walls up, you isolate yourself, and isolation is just as bad. So you can't do that either. So the root system of everything is a hardened heart, and then your mind becomes closed, and when those two things come together, not right and not in a healthy place, then you say, okay, you know what? I don't care about anybody else. I just want to do what feels right to me. And that's the society in which we live today. Here's our problem with today, okay? You ready? The problem with today is that we have so many people in our world that are hurt, and they will do whatever it takes to make themselves feel good. Do you think our today's drug problem, do we have a drug problem or do we have a sin problem? We have a sin problem. And the problem is we don't know how to deal with it. So because we were hurt and because we were abused, because we had all these things going on, we need something to cover up that pain. And so people turn to drugs and alcohol. Let me cover up this so I don't have to think about it no more, so my reality becomes changed. But then we sober up and what? We still have the same stuff there. Why do you think we have relationship problems? There's people that go from person to person to person to person to person to person to person and trying to find something that's not there. I'm just going to tell you something, okay? And I'm not trying to, but if you've been married, let's say 10 times. Let's just throw that out there, all right? 10 times. And you can't find the right person, there's one common denominator. You know who that is? You got to deal with the reality. Okay, maybe that was a bad choice. Let me give you another one. Let's say you want to lose weight. Okay? Don't even go. Listen, let me just give you a little hint. Don't even attempt that right now. Wait till the new year, and then you'll have the best diet of your first 3 days of the new year, and then you'll be done with it. But listen, so let's say you want to lose weight. I use this on Wednesday, and you get on the scale, and you can't see the scale. You got to take your phone out, take a picture. At some point, you got to deal with reality. Listen, I got a scale, and I'm scared they won't even go to where I need it to go. Judy got this little scale to like, I'm like, Judy, I can't even see it. So I purposely will hop on that scale every morning without my glasses, and I just go, oh, looks good to me. You got to deal with reality, man. I have to deal with the reality. When you put on your pants and they don't button, man, Judy's just shrinking my clothes up. I don't know what has gotten into her. She's washing everything in hot water. She's crazy right now. I got to go get some new clothes. They shrunk. We got to deal with reality at some point, right? So here's the thing. Listen, number 4, when our purpose is only pleasure, this is so important. When our purpose is only pleasure, we devalue every good relationship we have. When it's all about me and nobody else, listen, that means nobody else matters but you. We live in a world now where they say you should go and just leave every relationship until you go and love yourself. You heard that before? You don't even... Listen, how can you love yourself if you don't love anybody else? It's so counterproductive. Jesus says, go and serve people. Go and love others. And you know what? When you begin to serve other people and you begin to be his hands and feet, you will love yourself. You will find purpose in your life. But the world tells you to do the opposite way. It's quiet in here today. I thought I was going to get like a Grinch story. We're going to do some Jingle Bell songs, but he's preaching today. It ain't Christmas yet, people. So when our purpose is only pleasure, we devalue every good relationship we have. We become very good, listen, at using people for our benefit. It's like nobody... You say it like this, and I have to be careful how I say things, but some people get in relationships because it's a business arrangement. Some people get in friendships because it's a business arrangement. What if you were in a relationship that you got nothing beneficial from it at all? You just want to be a friend to somebody. You just want to love on somebody. You just want to be sweet to somebody. Be nice to somebody. Let me give you another one, number 5. So you see like the downward. It all starts with the heart and the mind, and then how we view things and how everything gets twisted. Next one is this: when relationships are devalued, people are being used. Listen, nothing has eternal significance. So now, because every relationship is devalued, it's only what I can get. That's why we have a culture today. Listen to me. That's why you have a culture today where everything is based on sex. Have you noticed this? Everything is sexual. Everything. It's what you benefit. How I identify? Listen, my identity now is who I want to have sex with. That's the world you live in. And it's getting crazier. And people have more definitions and more twisted views of what you should be. We should live our lives, you know what, to just serve the Lord. But instead, we've redefined everything and we've changed everything. When do definitions stop being rewritten? When do words begin to stop being changed? When I was growing up, the biggest change we ever had was the word bad. My mom was like, why are you using bad? I'm like, because that's cool. She's like, no, bad is bad. Cool is cool. But now we've redefined everything. And this is where we're at. And so the last one is this: when our hearts are hardened and corrupted minds have run its course, listen, life becomes empty and hopeless. Because you realize that how much using of somebody can you get from them? Because you've already devalued every relationship you've ever going to get into. And we've done it in church. Well, I'm going to go to that church until I can get what it's going to give me. And when it stops giving me what I want, I'm going to go to another church. We call that church shopping. You ever heard that term? Don't shop. Just give. Just give. Give what? Give yourself. All right. So that was the kind of negative stuff, all right? You want some good stuff? Yeah. All right, let's get back to the big old butt. Here we go. Verse 20. Hey, you started it, not me. Don't be judging. Here we go, verse 20. But that isn't what you learned about Christ. He says this: and since you have heard about Jesus and have learned the truth that come from him, he says, throw off your old sinful nature and your former way of life, which is corrupted by lust and deception. So here it is. Number 1, throw off your hardened hearts and your corrupted minds. In other words, allow your hearts to be softened by the leading of the Holy Spirit and allow God to use your minds to do something creative and something new. You don't have to walk around in prison clothes anymore. Listen, you don't have to do that anymore. Have you ever seen those pictures of homeless people makeovers? Where they take a homeless person off the street, they take him into a barber, they give him a shower, they give him a cut and a shave, right? They put new clothes on them, and they're completely different people. If you've never seen it, you should Google it. It's amazing. And you see these people that are on the streets with no purpose, nowhere to go, just beat up with life, and then someone puts new clothes on them, gives them a haircut, gives them a shave, gives them deodorant, lets them feel like a brand new person, and something magically happens to that person. You with me? Yes. That's what Jesus did for you. You were the homeless person. You were the person that was corrupt. You were the person that was beat up, that had no plan or purpose. And God took you in. He gave you a shower. He put new clothes on you. Gave you a haircut. Put some nice stuff on you. Make you smell pretty, right? Changed our lives. And he says, now go do something. And we go, okay. And then some of us go and serve and do it to somebody else. Some of us go back in the gutter. Change your clothes. Listen to me. Change your clothes. Change your clothes. If you wore clothes from 1970, listen to me. Change your clothes. 1980s, change your clothes. I like the 80s. Okay, hang them up, and then they might come back again, right? That's what y'all are thinking. It all comes back around. I got you. Well, wash them first, and then hang them up. All right. Let me give you a second. So throw off your old clothes and put on your new clothes. Listen, put on Christ. And I have this word. I don't know if you ever heard this word, but it's called renewed. Where do you go to shop at? We go to renewal. Because God did something with us. He's changed our clothes, man. We were beat up. We do have scars in our lives, and it hurts in our hearts. But God did something with that, though. He's changed us. Made us look good. True righteousness and holiness is what he's given us. So let me give you some application points real quick. Number one. So here's where the rubber meets the road. Number one, stop blaming other people for your problems. Stop writing it on Facebook. Here's what I want to see from Facebook. I want to see happy faces. I want to see your family. I want to see you and your spouse. I want to see you and your kids. I want to see positive stuff. I want to see good stuff. Don't go on Facebook and gripe, because I ain't reading it. People say, Pastor, did you read my post? How long was it? Right? If it wasn't a picture or a sentence long, I'm not reading it. I've had people get mad. I had the worst week of my life. You didn't read my post. I'm like, it's 4 pages long. Give me a picture and a sentence, will you? But you can't blame people for your problems. Because all of your problems have this thing in common. It's you. It's me. My problems are my fault. I have to change me. I have to change the way I think about things, the way I feel about things. I have to stop living in the past and live for tomorrow. Change them clothes. Taking action, listen, means taking responsibility. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know what age it is, but there's got to be an age where you just don't care how big you are. I'm being honest with you. I'm being honest. There's got to be I know, okay, listen to me. I know there's an age where you reach where you don't care what people think of what you just said. You just say whatever you want. I'm looking forward to that age, number one. I think I'll probably be a better pastor, to be honest with you. I'll be able to really say what I need to say. But I'm just saying, there's these ages where you just don't care. Like there's got to be an age where you're walking the mall, you see some kid going crazy, and you just go, hey, just whoop him. Just beat your kid right now in front of everybody. Don't worry about it. You just keep going, pick up your milk. You're good. Maybe there's an age where you walk by and you smack the kid yourself. I don't know. There's got to be an age where you're too old to get arrested. I don't know. I'm just saying. But you got to take responsibility, right, for yourself. And so if I want to make these changes in my life, whether it's a lifestyle change or a godly change or Jesus change, I have to start doing it. I can't say that when I was 3 years old that my daddy left me and I had nowhere to go, and I was a poor little white boy in the west side of Jacksonville. I used to have no breakfast in the morning. I had just bread and sugar and cinnamon, and my clothes were warmed in the oven because who cares? Who cares? What are we going to do today? Today, what are we going to do today? I can't live in the past. He says, put off your old clothes and put on your new clothes. Have you tried to wear clothes when you were a kid? As an adult, it looks weird and it's just creepy. My daughter used to say, if you're not 21, don't shop at Forever 21. She's like, there's a reason why Macy's is right next door. Get your behind over there. 22 and over, Macy's. Love you, Lord. Here we go, number 3. And here's what I want to get to. Never apologize for making life changes to honor Christ. I'm going to tell you right now, you want to lose weight? Do it for Jesus. Do it for the right reasons. If you do it for the wrong reasons, it's not going to last. Don't do it for vanity. Just do it for being healthy. My wife is trying to get me to eat healthy. So she tries to hide green beans in my mashed potatoes. You know what she does to me? She don't think it. I'm calling her out right now. She chops up spinach and puts it in my spaghetti sauce, thinking, oh, it's parsley. I got some new herbs I want to put in there. We know it's spinach, Judy. Never apologize for making life changes. She says to me, she said, listen to me, son. Talk to me. She's like, let me tell you something. Either you're going to die young, so I still got some good value on me, and mama can go out and get somebody that she already married for love, so the next one's for money, so just so you know. She goes, or you change what you eat, and we live longer, and we can live a long and happy life. I'm still praying about it right now. She's trying to get me to drink this stuff called kombucha. Kombucha, Matt's saying yes, Karen's saying no. Okay, listen, if I can't spell it, I'm not eating it or drinking it. All right, here we go. So here's the last one is keep your hearts tender and your mind clear at all costs. Don't stress. Don't stress. Some of y'all are stressing now. Holiday season. You're thinking about what you're going to be cooking, who's coming over, what you got, who's on the naughty list, who's on the nice list, who's getting this, don't stop stressing. Stop stressing. You'll get through it. Okay? You'll get through it. Let me close with this one thing. Matthew 22. I want to remind you of a parable that Jesus talks about. And I'm going to close with this parable. And I want to remind you that in this parable that this is about Wednesday. He gets arrested basically, Thursday night, Friday, we estimate, right? So this is like a couple days before he gets arrested. So the week leading up to his arrest and his crucifixion, he's preaching these parables, and he's in the temple. And so he's talking. He actually goes through two different parables before this one. This is a third one. And he's telling the Pharisees who they are and what is about to take place and what's important. So Matthew 22, verse number 1, the Bible reads and says this. Jesus told them all other parables, and he said, in other words, right before this verse, that the Pharisees just figured out that the two parables that Jesus was talking about was about them. It took them two parables. And so Jesus says, well, let me just kick it up a notch and give you a third one. Right? So here's what he says. So he also told them other parables, and he said this. The kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a king who prepared a great wedding feast for his son. Now, let me stop and tell you this and just kind of remind you, if you don't know any church lingo, or you are the bride of Christ. If you are a believer this morning and you've given your heart to Christ, you're in a church, and that's what we are called the bride of Christ. Okay? I know it's hard for some of us fellas to kind of, put that clothing on, but we are his bride. Christ is the groom, and the Father is setting the marriage up. So the whole purpose of us right now is that we are preparing ourselves, listen, to meet our groom. Because at any time he could come and tell us, I am ready for you. And we have to be ready, and we have to be able to have the right clothes on. You with me so far? Okay, so here we go. So the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a king who prepared a great wedding feast for his son. When the banquet was ready, he sent his servants to notify those who were invited, but they refused to come. So he sent other servants to tell them, and the feast had been prepared. The bulls and the fatted cattle have been killed, and everything is ready. Come to the banquet. But the guests that he had invited ignored them and went their way, one to his farm and another to his business. In other words, what he's saying was, Christ said, I'm ready, I'm here, it's about the time to start. But people went back to their businesses to go back into the world, is the picture. Others seized his messengers and insulted them and killed them. The king was furious, and he sent out an army to destroy the murderers and to burn their town. So the picture turns very, very, I guess, just really crazy. That the fact that there was a call that went out, guests were invited, guests either ignored, went back into life, or they killed the prophets or the messengers. And then you have what we call in the end times is the Great Tribulation. Of course, we know that's going to happen. And he says this in verse 8, and he said to his servants, the wedding feast is ready, and the guests that I invited aren't worthy of honor. Now go out into the street, listen, corners, and invite everyone you see. Everyone. Don't just go to the people that I went to first, talking about the Jews. Now he says go to everybody. Go to everybody. And it says this in verse 10. It says, so the servants brought in everyone they could find, good and bad alike. And the banquet hall was filled with guests. But when the king came to meet the guests, he noticed a man who wasn't wearing the proper clothes for a wedding. He said, verse 12, friend, he asked, how is it that you are here without a wedding clothes? But the man had no reply. In other words, he was speechless. Then the king said to his aides, bind his hands and his feet and throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be the weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen. Now, we could spend an hour going through this parable. But here's what what I want to pull from this, and I want to remind you. God cares very much on what you wear. Now, a couple things I was thinking. First, when I read this, I was like, okay, well, maybe he didn't have access to clothes. Maybe he was just pulled off the street and he just had, but that's not what it says. See, you have a generous king who invites everybody to come. And what he's talking about, the wedding clothes that you and I wear are righteousness and holiness. You can't come to his feast wearing your own clothes. You got to wear his clothes. You got to wear what he's given you. And what has he given you? Righteousness, holiness, purity, goodness, kindness, meekness, joy. You with me? You got to put on the Spirit. That's what he's saying. How did you get in here? And listen to me, and please, we should be just in warning all this. You're not going to be able to walk into heaven on your terms and on what you want to do. Well, God, I've done a lot of good things in this world. Look at the clothes that I brought to the table. He's like, that's not good enough. Have you ever heard someone say, when I get to heaven, I got some questions to ask God? Let me tell you something. God's going to say, first of all, how'd you get here? Right? Second thing he's going to say, listen, what are you wearing? And then he'll say, where's your clothes at? And they'll look down, and the Bible says they'll be speechless. He had nothing to say. You know why? Because he's without excuse. The call goes out to everyone. Everybody is called, but not everybody is chosen. Now, we could get in a deep theological discussion about that little sentence right there, but let me just say this to you. I believe that God's net is as wide as the earth. The call goes out to everybody, but not everyone who comes is going to be accepted to the wedding. You have to come on his terms. So when he says to the church, you don't live the way the Gentiles live, you live differently, that you have to put on Christ and take off the old stuff. Can I submit to you? We're about to embark this next year in a brand new building. Listen to me, in a brand new building that God has given us. Let's not go in there with the same clothes. Amen. Let's not go in there with the same attitude. Let's not go in there thinking, what can this church give me? Let's go in there and say, God, these are my hands, use me. This is my feet, use me. This is my voice, use me. These are the resources I have, use me. Whatever you need, God, I'll give it to you. Can we do that? Can we say that, Lord, as you begin to prepare our hearts to go into this new building, to go in this brand new 2020 that you have for us, that we can absolutely do something different for you, that we don't have to live the same way. We don't have to carry the same burdens and the same hurts. We get to start over. We get to be renewed. Don't wear the old clothes. Don't even wash the old clothes. Burn them. Get the new clothes. Don't you like new clothes? Right? Don't you like new clothes? Am I the only one that likes new clothes? Right? It can be new to you, but I like it. I'm just thankful for what the Lord has given us. And I don't want us to go in there to this incredible wedding feast that he's going to prepare for us with the wrong clothes on. Will you bow your heads with me? I just want you to think about something.